Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. Cruz counted 12 seconds between the first tremor and the moment the deck lights failed. She had never been afraid of turbulence. 6 years flying interceptors had cured her of that. But this was different. The whole hull groaned like something alive, and in the dark she found herself gripping the edge of her console hard enough to feel the metal seam bite into her palm. "Report," Reed's voice tight, came through the comm a half-second before the backup lights flickered on. That was later. That was the depot. Cruz would get there. First, she had to explain how they arrived at a fuel storage complex 3 continents from home with nothing left to lose. 2 weeks earlier, she'd been standing on a mountain runway watching the sky over New York fold in on itself on a live feed, the same as everyone else on the planet. The ships that came through the clouds didn't look built. They looked grown, matte black, soundless, patient. By the second day, humanity's satellites were dark and its governments were guessing. Cruz hadn't guessed. She'd been assigned to a ship most of the Pentagon didn't officially know existed, buried under 200 meters of Colorado granite. The Excalibur, 15 years and one stubborn engineer's career in the making. Dr. Myrill Lynn had spent 2 decades being laughed out of physics departments for a theory about folding a ship sideways out of normal space. Now her theory was the only card left in humanity's hand. Cruz remembered the day the fleet died. She'd watched it from the Excalibur's hangar deck, 218 enemy ships against 41 of Earth's best. The Liberty and Admiral Ockhaffer gone inside half an hour, debris where a navy used to be. Reed had kept the Excalibur out of it. She'd hated him for that, for exactly as long as it took her to understand he was right. "We're not the fleet," he'd told her. "We're something else." Something else turned out to mean 6 people, and a ship that could vanish and reappear 400 kilometers away before an enemy sensor finished its sweep. Their first kill, a lone Scorn patrol craft over the Pacific, took 90 seconds and left Cruz's hands shaking with something that wasn't fear. After that, the pattern held: strike, jump, vanish. Supply convoys disabled rather than destroyed, so the enemy had to spend ships and hours dragging them home. Scattered patrols picked off one at a time until the Scorn stopped patrolling scattered at all. Down on the ground, resistance radios started calling the shape that came and went in the dark the ghost, and Cruz had felt something unfamiliar climb back into her chest. Not victory, just room to breathe. The enemy adapted. Of course they did. Fleet Commander 3, a name Cruz only learned from intercepted chatter, spoken by his own officers like an apology, began clustering his ships, tightening escort formations, doubling patrols. It slowed the Excalibur down. It also meant fewer Scorn hunting the ground forces, which was its own kind of victory nobody would put on a medal. Then came the trap. A convoy too easy, a formation that matched every pattern they'd hit clean for days. Lynn's deep scan caught the ambush waiting 50 kilometers out, engines dark, patient. "They're finally thinking about how we fight," Reed had said. "Which means we stop being predictable starting now." They jumped into the ambush instead of the bait. Cruz still felt the half-second of vertigo when the stars rearranged themselves, and 4 Scorn warships went from hunter to hunted in the same breath. 2 ships gone in the first 30 seconds. Then the enemy recovered, and the fight turned into something the simulations had never modeled. Shields bleeding down through 70%, 40, the whole ship screaming under fire while Lynn counted down an engine that wasn't ready. Reed had gambled everything on one shot at the biggest ship left. It worked. It always worked until the day it wouldn't. Cruz had started keeping her own count after that, scratching a short line into the underside of her console with a multi-tool each time a Scorn hull went dark, a private tally nobody else on the bridge knew about. She didn't know why. It felt like something a person should keep, somewhere the ship's official logs wouldn't. By the 11th day, the tally had grown past 30, and Command 3 had a fear problem of his own. Cruz heard it in every intercepted transmission that resistance decoders passed along, officers requesting support before routine patrols, a fleet that had conquered a dozen worlds suddenly flinching at shadows. Reed decided that fear was a weapon worth using. The Strike on 3's command formation was the closest Cruz had come to believing they wouldn't come home. They jumped straight into the outer edge of 20 escort ships, hit the relay vessel holding the whole formation's shields together, and watched the entire cluster stagger like a man who'd lost his balance. In the chaos, the Excalibur had crossed to the command ship itself and put a single shot through its weapons array, not a killing blow, a message. Cruz had watched Three's flagship go dark on her sensors and felt something she hadn't expected. Pity, gone as fast as it arrived. Which brought her back to the depot, and the 12 seconds of turbulence and the dark. They'd known the fuel and supply hub in high orbit was the last real target that mattered, the thing keeping the ground occupation fed. They'd also known it would be defended like nothing else in the system. Lynn had warned them the engine was past safe limits. Reed had ordered the jump anyway. "Fire on the depot," he'd said, and Webb had put everything the resonance cannon had into the fuel stores, and the sky had opened into a second sun. Then the return fire came, and the shields dropped past 30%, and Lynn's voice cracked over the comm. "If I force this jump, I can't promise we come out the other side." "Do it," Reed said. "We don't have another choice." Cruz's hands found the console edge again in the dark, 12 seconds of nothing, and then the stars were different stars, and the ship was quiet, and they were alive. She sat there afterward with her palms still pressed flat against the scratched metal, not trusting herself to speak, while Lynn confirmed the engine was dead for days, and the shields were gone, and none of it mattered because the depot was gone too. The withdrawal order came through intercepted Scorn traffic 18 hours later. Cruz was the one who caught it first, sitting alone at her station while the rest of the crew slept in shifts they'd earned twice over. "We are leaving this system." 4 words from a commander who'd spent 3 centuries never needing to say them. She didn't wake anyone right away. She sat with it a while, the ship silent around her, and ran her thumb along the row of scratches under her console, 38 of them now, small and crooked in hers. When she finally told Reed, he didn't smile the way she expected. He just nodded slow, like a man setting down something heavy he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten its weight. Weeks later, back under the mountain with the ship in dock and the sky over every city on Earth clear again, Cruz kept the console panel. She had it cut free during repairs and mounted in her quarters, 38 small lines scratched into gray metal, meaning nothing to anyone who hadn't been there, meaning everything to her. Not a trophy, just proof that she'd counted everyone and that the counting had eventually stopped.